The story of this video begins in the middle of August. As some of you might know, I am a film student, and part of what we students do during our time of study is shoot a couple films, usually short films. So it was in the last 2 weeks of August that I was part of a student film shoot as the camera assistant. And as almost always, the shoot was quite an event with loads of work and a lot of fun. These shoots usually seem to begin with most of the crew being quite fit and ready to tackle the project, and ending with an exhausted crew ready to sleep through 3 days straight. During the shoot, at one point, I felt the urge to document this process and, more importantly, capture some memories for myself. So I decided to load my mum's old Olympus XA3, which she gifted to me, with a roll of AGFA APX 400, which I had stored in the fridge for ages already. That roll was actually an impulse purchase, and I never really knew what to shoot with it, but it was this shoot when I knew it was time to use it. And so I collected a few photographs from the film shoot, which turned out beautifully in my opinion, although I might be biased by an emotional attachment to the photos. Okay, I definitely am. Nevertheless, in today's video, I want to show you this series of my friends on black and white film. So, by now you should be familiar with this video format. I've again created this presentation or slideshow, whatever you want to call it, with sometimes just one photo on a page and sometimes with 2 photos, as if we were flipping through a zine or a book. Something I would like to make clear before I dive into the photos is that these are in no way in a chronological order. I arranged the photos in a way that I personally think they tell the story and the feeling that I want to convey of the shoot quite well. So let's begin. These are the 2 first photos I wanted to show you. They feel a bit like establishing shots for this film or this photo series in this case. The first photo was done because of the lighting. I really liked the lights that was hitting the window and the table there. It feels a bit like morning light, I would say. And I just like the scene with the table and the pots, and in addition those walkie-talkies. The photo to the right is my friend Uli, who was also the camera assistant. So Uli and I were the 2 camera assistants of Lena, the DP, and I think these 2 photos came out really nicely. I really like the one to the left. I feel like it is the perfect establisher for this series because it doesn't quite show yet what is going on, but it has these little tips, you could say, like the walkie-talkies that signal what this series is going to be about. And the second photo already introduces you to the first character, you could say. Then let's continue with this photo. I also thought that this has this sort of establishing character, as if it would be a good introduction to the series, but it already shows the film equipment. Basically, anybody who knows the film industry will know, oh wait, this must be on a film shoot because they've got film equipment here. And Joseph, the next character of this series, he's standing here at the window, probably saying something to his colleagues down in the garden because they were setting up lights down there. And I thought this was a wonderful scene with the light from outside, meaning the room was pretty dark, and him standing in this frame. So it's, yeah, a typical subframing here, and I think it works beautifully. I like it a lot. Then here's a little self-portrait. Oftentimes, Uli and I had some time to just wait, and in that time, I then once decided to put the camera onto a tripod. It was actually a C-stand with some other equipment, and that equipment is actually made for lights. So it looked pretty ridiculous to put the tiny Olympus XA3 onto that equipment. Here's a photo. This camera weighs basically nothing, so it looks pretty ridiculous to me. But we did that to get this photo here, and I think it turned out quite nicely. I'm not sure what it was. I feel like we were not just smiling, but actually laughing at something here at the moment, but I'm not quite sure what it is. It looks really authentic to me, which is something I really like about this photo. Well, yeah, let's move on to the next photo. This is another self-portrait, again at the same setup with the XA3 on a C-stand. Again, I think we just had some time to wait because maybe the people who were doing the lighting needed about an hour or something to set up all the lights. And so we from the camera department had some time off. So this is the whole camera department in one picture actually. And yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, it's photographically speaking, absolutely nothing utterly interesting, I would say. It's, I think what makes this photo valuable is more the personal value as of this being a memory of the fun times that we had in this shoot. Then let's continue with this photo here. The person you can see in this photo was the main actress for the short film we were shooting, and she was sitting in that couch at the moment to shoot exactly this shot that I got here, or more or less this shot is what we were shooting, and the light department was still adjusting the lights to get the perfect lighting onto her face. And she was just waiting there for us to get ready and then get the shot. And the camera was already on the tripod and actually ready to go. So I got the Olympus quickly and snapped this photo of her. And I think it's really cool because the light was almost done. So this is pretty much the lighting that was used. I mean, there were some small adjustments, but I do think even in this photo, it looks really good. One thing that you might have noticed is that I missed focus, and that is due to my inexperience with the focusing method on the Olympus XA3, because it has zoned focusing. So basically it has this knob that you can set to either infinity, mid-range or close-up. So I usually just had it at mid-range, but it seemed like many portraits that I wanted to do needed the close-up. I haven't quite gotten the hang of this zone focusing yet. So yeah, some blurry photos are awaiting you. Here we are, this is the next blurry photo. I believe this was just at the end of a day of shooting because, as you can see, the camera does not have a lens anymore attached to it, so I guess somebody had already unmounted everything so that we can take the camera home. And yeah, I asked the boys to stand in for a photo, and I believe Joseph was just blinking at that moment, that's why his eyes are half closed. I think Uli also wasn't quite ready for the photograph yet. But as you can see, this photo is done with a flash, and I was really enjoying this use of the flash because the Olympus has the possibility of screwing a flash onto it on the side. And I had that screwed on the camera most of the time, and for exactly these situations I think it is beautiful. It has this very personal look, and I think in this case it really fits the situation. Then, as you have noticed, the last two photos in this one are kind of the mid-section of the shoot now. I wanted to start this series with these establishing shots and introducing you to a few characters. And now these are all shots that were in the midst of actually working. I don't know why I wasn't working here. Probably the camera was already set up or something, and they were changing something in the set design, and I thought it'd be cool to snap this little mirror selfie, including a bunch of other people here. I can't say too much about it. I just think it's a very simple photo and it feels quite documentative, seeing as nobody except for me is actually seeing the camera. Nobody knows that they were photographed here. Then here is one of my favorite photos from this roll. So you have to know, Joseph was wearing these really broken shoes. I also have a pair of really broken shoes and I still like to wear them, and I guess Joseph is just the same type. He doesn't want to give up on those shoes, and they were just tearing apart already, so far that he had to tape them with gaffer tape. And so in this left shot you can see that somebody was helping him to like wrap this gaffer tape around his shoes so that it doesn't fall apart. And I thought this scene was just hilarious. So I snapped this photo, and I think again with the flash it just looks so real in a way. I mean, Joseph does look into the camera directly, but it doesn't look like he's actually posing in any way. It looks very real, and so I really like it. Again, I missed focus. It's somewhere in the background now, but yeah. You do still see what's going on, luckily, and the story is being told. And then the photo to the right is just like a follow-up of his shoes. The left shoe was still okay, and the right shoe then had its little improvised fix, I would say. Then here are two more photos, which also just represent this time in the middle of the shoot. Everybody's just in their zone. Everybody has found their way of working in this shoot and found their space. Now we're just going hard. And in the left photo, this is Sabine from set design. And I think this was also after a day of shooting. She was just sitting in this chair reading a book. And I thought it was so funny how she was sitting in the midst of this chaos, because I think we had to be quick for the next shot in a different room or something. So we just threw everything into a corner, which was this corner here. And she, for some reason, felt like this would be the perfect corner to sit in and have a little read. And so I thought it was quite funny. And then in the right photo, I got this photo and I think it's really cool. It just nicely documents the shoot. Then with this next slide and this new photo here, I want to bring the series into a new chapter, you could say. In this chapter, this is like the down phase before the end spurt. Does that make any sense? I don't know. This photo feels like rest to me. It feels like the two guys here are having a rest, and it's just coming down a little bit from the high energy that we had so far and trying to just collect a little bit of energy to push through the rest of the shoot. I think this photo represents this quite nicely. Apart from that, photographically, I think this one turned out really nicely. Again, just playing with the depth and subframes here. And I also really like how the light that is behind the leaves at the very end kind of shines through and has this glow. It looks really cool. This was the exit of the house. So from the right, there's this light coming, shining onto the two guys here. And therefore, I think it's actually a really pleasing lighting situation, seeing as it's coming just from the side. It's quite directional. I think this, coincidentally, is really good lighting that I got here. So that last chapter was maybe very short because it was just that one photo. This is now the beginning of the last part of the shoot, I would say. So this series sort of is split up into 4 parts. The first is the establishing, then is the hard working, then is one little pause just to collect energy, and now this is everybody putting in the last little bit of energy that they have for the last few days to get this film shot. And the left photo is a little wild, but pretty cool, I think. To the left, that is Joseph, and to the right, that is Stella, the director. And I find her sitting in this chair in that pose. I think it's the pose that makes it look so tired, but also really chill. It looks really comfortable in a way, how she sits in that stool and is reading through her notes, I believe. And to the right here is a portrait of Ellen. This was just another one of those flash portraits where I just put the flash on the camera and flash it into the people's face. And I think it actually turned out really nicely. The hand in the right back is a little strange. It's a little distracting, but at the same time, all of these photos are, photographically speaking, not really high-end, high-quality, whatever. These are much more personal photos. These photos capture, in my opinion at least, the essence of photography, this documentative aspect of photography, that you are freezing time, that you're actually making a picture of something that happened, and it's just that 1 second, or actually it's less than a second, but that one moment that you're then burning onto the film, and then you have it forever basically. So here I can revisit these moments, and I remember that I was coming out from the main set back here where I was pulling focus, and Ellen was sitting here, which I had known already, and so I was prepared to shoot a photo of her and just kneeled down and tack, got that photo. And therefore here as well, it's quite real. I mean, she did notice me, but she wasn't prepared for the photo, not really. I think that is what makes this whole series quite fascinating for me personally and valuable. Of course, for me, it has a much higher value seeing as it's my memories, but I hope by showing it to you, you can somehow relate to what the value is of these photos. And I don't really know how it is for somebody who has an outstander, let's say, looking at these photos, what kind of images these are and what emotions they evoke in you. I hope that they are in any way interesting. So let's continue with the second slide of this last chapter of pushing through. I thought this chapter is the perfect chapter to include a lot of these night shots, because we had many late and very late nights of shooting, and I think these darker photos that show that it is nighttime have this feeling of pushing through, because you're pushing through the night to get this film shot. And so to the left, here is Uli holding the camera. In this moment, we were probably just waiting for Lena because she usually drove us home, and that is when the right photo was made. And the right photo, if I remember correctly, was made by opening the boot at the back, and I just pointed the camera in and shot this photo of them looking back at me, with the flash of course. These photos were also shot just sometime after the shoot, just before going home. As you can see in the right photo, Joseph already had his bike with him, ready to cycle home, and I believe Ahmed and I were waiting for a little drive. Then on this next slide, I believe this was just the next morning after the shots I just showed you. And if I remember correctly, this was the night when I came home at about 2 or 3 a.m. I think it was 2 a.m. and I got to bed at 3 a.m. And the next morning I went out again at 7 a.m. to be here on time, and just like me, everybody else was just lacking their sleep for that night. As I came, Joseph and Stella were here, and they both looked so tired. And Joseph really had this tired facial expression, and his eyes looked so done, just not ready for the day yet, and I really wanted to capture that. Sadly, however, you can see I missed focus, so you can't really see his eyes so well. But hear me out. I do think, in this case, you can somehow make the argument that this blurriness of him represents or is a metaphor for his feelings. Because he wasn't quite awake yet, his world was still a little blurry, and so this you could say is some sort of a symbol for that. But of course this is just me making up a reason why this photo is okay. Actually, I just missed the focus. And then to the right is Stella, who was also extremely tired probably, but because she pulled a face here you can't quite see it, but I'm telling you, she was definitely tired that morning. Then on this next slide, these two photos were on the one before last shooting day, or in this case shooting night, and we were just having a little break before we pushed through the last few shots that we had left. And in the left photo, I think Joseph's look into the camera just tells everything. It's amazing. His facial expression just tells you that he's done. He's exhausted and he just wants to push through and make this film, but at the same time he actually just wants to go home and fall into bed. And the right photo also, both of them just look so done with this shoot. I mean, we were all just trying our best and trying to push through, but at the same time all of us were tired. And then on this next slide, here is the last photo that I have to show you. This was on the last day of shooting, but when exactly it was I do not know, because I did not shoot this photo. And that is because I was not there on the last day, because that previous night just completely knocked me out. I felt quite bad already in that night, and then at the end of that night of shooting, I think we finished at maybe 3 AM, I had these shivers going on and I felt like I was getting a fever. And the next day I was dead. I couldn't get out of bed. I just lay in bed all day. I don't exactly know what happened, but I suppose I just got defeated by something. I was just dead for 3 days. I had my camera still at the location, and Amit told me that he then took the camera and got this group shot of them. And I'm a little disappointed that he told me, because it would have been so fun while scanning to suddenly see this and wonder, when did I take this photo? But he spoiled me before I had scanned them, and still funny nevertheless to see this photo, and I think it's quite cool to have this photo done out of my control, but it's on my roll of film. So it kind of is in my series of photos, but I had absolutely no control over it, which I think is somehow funny and interesting in a way. And with this photo, that is the end of this series. I hope you enjoyed the series. I hope you understood this chapter arrangement that I was going for. So I'd be really curious to know how you perceived this series. In this case, you as an outstander, how you perceive the story would be really interesting for me to know. So feel free to leave a comment, or I encourage you to leave a comment with your thoughts. So yeah, that's it for this week. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll hopefully see you again next week in the next video. Until then, goodbye.